Dr. Val Silidker is the co-founder, director, and senior coach trainer of the Psychospiritual Institute. She is a board-certified coach and has been coaching individuals and facilitating groups for over 20 years. My goodness, I'm not sure. Did you start when you were a child? Specializing in transpersonal psychology, leadership, ecotherapy, authentic connection work, and holistic business coaching. Val is also an international speaker, author of Call of the Ecological Self, and has been featured multiple times on Hay House Radio, NBC, and USA Today, as well as numerous publications. Over the past 2 decades, she has produced close to 100 large-scale mindful living events, retreats, workshops, and gratefully inspired the transformation of thousands of people worldwide. I'm like bouncing in my seat. Val, thank you so much for being here with us today. And
thank you for putting us together. My goodness, it's so important for us to be in these conversations right now.
And absolutely. I remember the thing that really landed for me when you and I connected at first, and it's been resonating, and actually I've had lots of conversations about it since, is you said this thing about positive disintegration. And I know we're going to dive right on in that, but there's a lot going on in the world and it can feel chaotic. There's a lot of uncertainty, and we haven't, certainly I'll speak from my perspective, we haven't experienced that. There's been a lot of consistency. We can look, I would look at the planet Saturn for that, but there's lots of modalities of, looking at how the systems operate and how we operate within those. But it's, we've had a consistency. And then 2020 came, and of course, it's been this huge upheaval, and a lot of people are very dysregulated. And I loved when you used the term positive disintegration. What is that?
Yeah, this is definitely a place to dive right in. My goodness. So, where to begin? We've been experiencing something really different in our lifetime, right? In our lifetime, our collective world is experiencing a collective trauma, right? We're all tuned into something through this pandemic and all that's arisen out of that, right? And so for the first time in our lifetime, we're really invited into a collective field of experience. And as a result of that, we're seeing a lot of things exposed. We're seeing a lot of systems that are not sustainable being exposed. Right? We're seeing a lot of the ways that we create consequences due to our ignorance and lack of connection to who we really are in this world being exposed. And I think that what's happening right now is that life is inviting us to take a deeper look. We move so fast. We're all like just moving at lightning speed, trying to do it all, be it all. We're conditioned by our society that working hard, working faster, not sleeping, like these are the ways that we are supposed to show up in the world to be successful, right? So we move so fast. And when we move so fast, we don't get an opportunity to create space, to be with our experience, to be with our, the emotions that are present for us, the ways that we're experiencing ourselves in relationship to the world, to each other. And so what's happened, and in a way, kind of the gift of the last couple of years, has been this invitation to slow down, to reassess what we value, and to make, hopefully for a lot of people, some new decisions about how they move forward in their lives. I think what's felt really confusing is that it's brought up a lot of suffering, a lot of pain, like you said, a lot of maybe just exposure to the dysfunction of society and how that's landing for us emotionally right now. And so this idea of positive disintegration, to get back to your question, is an invitation to kind of reframe what it is that we're experiencing right now. So as an ecologist and a deep ecologist, I love to put things kind of in ecological terms. And something I say often is that evolution happens under the greatest amount of pressure. And so our world is experiencing this intensification that's happening in our lives individually and personally and also collectively right now. And it feels like we're in the midst of a dark night of the soul. We feel confused. We don't know really what the next step is. For a lot of us that are tuning in and awakening to what's happening right now, we may not know what the next step is, but we realize that whatever it is, it needs to look different than it's been, that business as usual can't continue. This idea of positive disintegration is a way of looking at the systems that are crumbling as a way through to a new way of being. So for instance, when we get new information, when something in our lives happen that gives us an aha and we see things in a different way, our perspective deepens, our perception of life deepens, we can't continue doing things the way that we've been doing them, but we go through a period of kind of readjustment. We're like, I'm not really sure who I am moving forward right now because I can't be who I was because I have this new information. So how do I move forward? So it feels really hard and confusing and scary. And the guiding light in all of that is that what emerges is the next version of ourselves and hopefully the next version of our world. So I can even give you a personal example if you want one.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So for me, like one really massive experience that I had around positive disintegration was in my early 20s, which was over 20 years ago. And I was dating somebody at that time, and he wanted to show me a video of something that felt really important to him that he thought I wasn't seeing. So he showed me a video of a slaughterhouse. And it was heartbreaking to see the way that these animals are being treated with no regard. And it was so inhumane and so painful for me to see that. And then he showed me another video of a circus and the behind the scenes of a circus and the elephants being beaten by bull hooks into submission and like all of these things that I had never thought about, I had never looked at before. And until that point, like I felt like a person of compassion and connected to the world in my own way. It was not something that I had really thought about before. And so after seeing these videos, and my first response was my automatic response. Well, we're part of the food chain and this, but something didn't feel right. I felt thrown off my center. I wasn't believing the words coming out of my mouth. And I got really sad. Like it was literally a huge heartbreak. And I had to sit there with my heart broken open to the world and to the pain and suffering of other animals in our world. And I realized that I cannot move forward the way that I've been. Like I chose right then to become a vegan. And I chose right then to not contribute to animal parks, whether it's marine parks or zoos or anything, anywhere they take, healthy animals and put them into confined conditions. I decided right then to make some new, very different choices in my life that set me on a path that changed my entire trajectory of where I thought I was heading in my world. And so there was this period though of really not knowing what was going to happen next for me or how I was going to live my life. And then what emerged was a more awakened me. And it literally set me on my path to doing the work that I do today, 20 plus years later. So that was an experience of positive disintegration. And it's positive because what emerges is this positive, powerful new way of being in the world.
Beautiful, beautiful. And what a great example, because in that moment, I'm presuming that your diet, if it was, most US diets, it's very meat centric, almost every meal, and so if you're suddenly not going to eat animals, you try to justify it with, oh, well, part of this is the food triangle, food pyramid, or, this is just how it is, and when you powerfully, your heart broke open, the feelings, like your soul, I've used the terminology soul, told you you're not in alignment for that suddenly then you may be in a space, and I'm speaking from my experience when I went through that. It's like, then what do I eat? Then what do I eat? It's very much an unknown, and it is a microcosm of a much larger positive disintegration happening. But it's like, well, if not this, then what? And that unknown is like stepping into the void, right? I love this psycho-spiritual institute, psycho and spiritual. I'd love to know how you landed into psychology with spirituality, with ecology, because I'm sure there's a synchronicity and a synergy there. I'd love to know how, with this moment in your 20s of positive disintegration, that led into the work that you do now, and really what is the synergy between those different topics that you teach?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And just one thing to kind of complete what we were just sharing a moment ago is that, when we move into that space of this sort of, this dark night of the soul, right, that feels so chaotic, what also happens is it invites us into a deeper connection with what we value. Mm-hmm. And so when that happened for me, and this will set me on the answer to your question, what I realized is that something that I valued very deeply was to live a life of compassion, to live a life that created as little to no suffering as possible consciously, right, in my life. And what does that look like for me? And so it set me on this path of asking much deeper questions, not only about, how do I step into deeper compassion in the world, but also what else am I not thinking about? Because I was ignorant of this. It wasn't like I was trying to create pain in the world or trying to contribute to something that created suffering in the world. It was that I wasn't aware of it. And so I started asking much deeper questions about who I am and what I value and what is meaningful for me in my life. What gives me a sense of purpose? How do I want to live my life? And that set me on this path of diving deeper into, first of all, animal rights. And I became an animal rights advocate. I started a nonprofit organization called Rattle the Cage. My old partner still manages that. And I went into a different direction around more of an educational path and creating events, gatherings, community building. And so along the way, I found that my sense of self began to expand. And so here I am, all of a sudden, my connection to other animals and recognizing that, wow, humans are also animals. We're not separate from life. We're not separate from nature. We live as though we are. But the reality is that we're part of one human and all animals and Earth family. And so I began to deepen into my connection to non-human animals, and even rewording that felt important to me. Non-human animals, being humans are animals too. So I started watching my language around that. And that led me into deeper environmental issues and becoming an environmental activist and advocate. And I started getting involved with all kinds of organizations and leading some of my own. And then I ended up going to school, long story short, for ecology and deep ecology. And deep ecology is this deeper look at the ways that we relate to the world, asking the deeper questions, really something I was already doing. And then I found the name for it, which is who are we as humans in relationship to this Earth community that we're part of. And so I got my graduate degree there. I ended up becoming a professor at FIU, teaching ecology and sometimes deep ecology work and earth ethics and bringing all of that together. And then along the way, something that I realized as I began to continue to expand my sense of self was that now, wow, I'm not even limited to an Earth community, because the Earth is part of a greater cosmos. We're part of the universe story, this 13.7 billion year unfolding universe story. Who am I in that context? And the deeper that I went, I would say the more expansive that my sense of self felt, the larger I began to feel. And what I got in all of that is that the way to experience myself in the largest possible sense is to go deeper inward. So my sense of self that began to expand here brought me back within myself. And that understanding, and also the understanding that we are suffering so much on this planet. We as humans are suffering. Through our ignorance and through our inability to be present to our emotions, through the ways that we've been conditioned in society to numb out and run away. And all of those things are so important. And I really began to understand that at the heart of everything I was doing, from the events, the workshops, all of it, the heart of it, my spiritual vision, was to help us remember who we are in the deepest context. So we can not only heal and whole ourselves, but through understanding who we are, creating a deeper and more expansive sense of self, we then want to contribute in greater ways to the world. It doesn't become something that feels hard or a duty. It becomes an inspiration to take part in the healing of my larger body, because it's all part of me. The Earth is inside of me, right? So that's what I got. And all of that led me to create Psychospiritual Institute, which in a lot of ways is the culmination of the activism, the ecological identity, the ecological self, the transpersonal work. So we can dive deeper, but it's transpersonal. So it's the soul and the personality. It's the individual self and the collective. So it's this transpersonal experience of self and doing our inner work so that we can become greater participants in life. And that's how this came to be.
it really, what I'm really hearing from everything that you're saying on such a big perspective is this all is one. And it perfectly leads on from what Dr. Alok and Victorious were talking about with this polarities. But actually, if we can be in right relationship with all that is, and then we can truly live in that place. Like as you're speaking, I'm feeling settled in my soul, because you're speaking truth. You're speaking so profoundly, and you're speaking to the higher part of me that knows this truth that you're speaking so eloquently about, so eloquently. Gosh, I just love it so much. And you're seeing such a global perspective, but speaking it so clearly. And one thing that I'd love to pick up, if I may, that you spoke about is this numbing out. And I know we spoke about this, that we have a lot of methodologies to numb out. Dr. Alok earlier was speaking about how we have a dopamine addiction. And actually, if we can be with all parts of ourselves and not judge it as right or wrong, good or bad, but be with it, that it is all part of the human experience, or the worldly or the universal experience, that that is truly the place to move out of suffering. So what is numbing out? What does it look like? And how are we able to move forwards? Let's say somebody's listening and they are, how will they know if they're numbing out? And then how would they move forwards?
Yeah, I mean, this is such an important conversation, and I'm glad that it keeps coming up with all of your guests right now, because I do feel like, I think, number one, we set the context for who am I, right? We understand our sense of self. I think starting there, with grounding into the beauty of the world and recognizing that we're part of something so elegant and so intelligent. And when we allow ourselves to expand, we feel a deeper sense of belonging to the world. This is, in a way, it's kind of like a gateway into our ability to be with ourselves in a more spacious way. I think, on a chemical level, the dopamine, so important to talk about that. And then also important to look at is the way that we are conditioned in our world to feel inadequate, to feel like we are nothing without this product. We are not good enough without this brand. We need to be happy, 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 joy, joy, joy all the time. That there's something wrong with us if we feel sadness or grief. And so we're always trying to flip out of those emotions, or to numb them out, or to push them away, or to repress them in some way. And I think that the problem is not our pain. The problem is in the repression of our pain. It is dangerous in our world. What happens when we repress our pain into the subconscious is that it doesn't go away. It comes out in our relationships. It comes out as a violence in the world on larger levels with people who are very dysfunctional around that. We have a society that teaches us that happiness is the goal, but it's not. Joy and happiness are two different things. It's wonderful to feel happy. And if what I'm feeling right now is grief, if what I'm feeling right now is the pain of our world, and tuning into that right now, and it's sitting in me in a deep way, and I don't allow myself to feel that, apathy is the danger. But if I can turn toward that, what happens is that by being able to be present and create the space to feel that grief, what also happens is that I begin to understand that it's not just grief, it's also love, because I only can grieve for what I love. So if I'm feeling any kind of deep sadness or deep grief, I'm also connected to my love for the world. I love this world so much. I want to see people healed. I want to see, the suffering minimized. I want to see us connect to the beauty. And it brings me deep grief to know that we're so disconnected. So what is my love? So it brings you to the other side of that. When I'm feeling my anger and anger arises in me, then I can also see that as my passion for justice, for righteousness and holiness in the world. And now it's not just I'm angry. No, I'm passionate. I'm passionate about something that is not right in this world. And I want to be part of the solution to that. So when we're able to be with whatever our emotions are, and we may not be feeling in our conscious mind, the largeness of feeling the pain for our world. Maybe it's something more personal that I'm going through. Maybe I've experienced the loss of a loved one, and I'm sitting in that grief right now. How do I move forward? So recognizing, first of all, identifying that I'm having an experience of grief is one thing. The other thing is to be able to disidentify from the experience of my emotions. And disidentification is not the same thing as disassociation. So I want to right away nip that in the bud. So disassociation is when we just transcend away and we spiritually bypass and we just like don't want to feel it. I'm above it, right? That's not what we're doing. Disidentification means that sometimes we become overly identified. And in this case, we'll talk about an emotion. I might be overly identified with my experience of grief. So I'm so lost and trapped in my experience of grief right now that it begins to paralyze me. It begins to weigh me down. I don't know how to move forward. If I'm able to recognize that I'm having an experience of grief and also who I am is more than my grief, now I'm disidentifying, reconnecting to this deeper sense of self, the self that's connected to the world, the soul of the world, the self that's part of something much larger. When I can connect to that self and that soul of me, I can now see this part of me that's experiencing grief. I can be in the grief. I can have the tears of the grief. I can experience it all the way. And I can also hold my love. I can also hold my gratitude for being able to feel this deeply. I can also hold a deeper truth, that knowing that going through this grief is going to shape me in some way. It might even put me on a path that I need to be on. But in some way, I'm going to get information from this experience, because our emotions hold very important information that helps us deepen and grow and evolve. So I can see and hold all of that from a deeper space of self while experiencing my grief. So it's the both and. You spoke of polarities earlier. This is about both having the experience and holding myself like a parent to a child in the experience. We can do both. We can be a unique, differentiated self and feel at one with the world. But if I'm only at one with the world, then I lose my sense of self in that. If I'm only about me, then I'm disconnected from the whole. So the way that we move forward is to create that space to allow ourselves to be with these emotions in a more profound way, and to recognize that we're more than our emotions, and yet having these emotions allows us to move into a deeper experience of ourselves.
Wow. For the audience who are listening, who have been on since Yannicka this morning, are you hearing that Val is saying exactly the same thing here? And so, Val, I'm going to ask you this question, because it's all about, we hear things different ways from different people that may land. So let's say that we're in this experience and we're viewing anything other than happiness as bad and a problem. And I love how you brought that and really reframe that, like, my grief is actually a reflection of how deeply I loved. Wow. I mean, to be able to hold that is so healing, and that we have space for both of it at the same time. What one tool would you say to someone listening that someone could actually put into practice to be able to move forwards in this powerful way, rather than numbing out, rather than coming into an apathetic state? But what one tool can someone do today to be in that space, to hold both?
It's so important. I mean, in the body of work that I teach, there are a lot of tools that can support us. And the first one that's coming to my mind right now will give us a deeper experience of being present to what it is that we feel. And it's an exercise called breathing through. And just to give a glimpse of it without guiding an entire meditation around it, but the experience of it is to allow yourself to feel the opening of your heart to whatever it is that you're experiencing. And as you breathe, notice your breath, breathing in through your nose, through your lungs, and into your heart. So you're breathing in and you're allowing the exhale as if you're breathing out through your heart. So it becomes this beautiful cycle, in through the nose, out through the heart. And whatever feels present for you, you're holding that in your mind. So maybe I'm experiencing, the loneliness in our world right now. And that's feeling very hard for me to hold, because it's part of my personal experience. And that's what you're experiencing in this moment. So allowing yourself to just recognize that. And rather than try to numb out, breathing it in and breathing it out through your heart, as if you're releasing it into the greater soul of the world. to be held by something larger than yourself, and letting it come through. And as it moves through your heart, it's almost like composting the experience, so that the nourishment from being able to be present to that experience and then moving into the world, so that it's held by the larger world. And that, just that alone, that simple act of breathing it through and releasing it to the world, breathing it through and releasing it to the world, it allows our arms to grow larger. It allows us to really feel held by this beloved earth, and the great mystery of life, and the deeper essence of who and what we are, to know that we are part of this mutual belonging, that we're not alone in our experience. And so that is a simple tool that I come to often when I'm feeling big. I just will put my hands on my heart and just be with that. And maybe even settle into, what do I need right now? So a lot of it has to do with slowing down and creating space.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. So powerful. And even I was just doing that as you were talking, and it is just that moment of tuning inwards and really presencing, what is it? Because I think a lot of times it's, we talk about emotional awareness. Sometimes we're not aware of what we're feeling. And so, if we're noticing something is not in alignment, then breathing through. Thank you so much for sharing that tool. For everybody listening, I hope, like me, you're taking, I have pages and pages and pages of notes here. I hope you are taking notes and actually using this. Add this into your toolbox. Like Yannicka saying, dance with the emotion and express it, and then invite in the opposite energy. And we have Val here who's talking about breathing through and composting. I love composting, because you take the nutrients, and then from compost, you grow the most vital and the most nutritious vegetables. And it's amazing. We've had, Victoras on. I know that he's still listening, and he's probably in deep alignment with a lot that you're saying here, if not all that you're saying here as well. I know you have a beautiful gift for us, Val, the ideal model exercise, and Janelle just dropped that link for everybody. Make sure you go grab it right now. These experts are showing up for you. They're taking time out of their day because their heart is moved to share this with you. They've created this because they know this is the tool in your toolbox that's actually going to make a difference in your life, that you're not in apathy, but you're actually in understanding that your suffering and your grief is actually a mirror and reflection of how deeply you care and how much you love. So yeah, Val, what is the ideal model exercise?
Yeah, so the ideal model exercise is this beautiful kind of an artistic meditation that takes us through what we call false models. First. So you move through a process of identifying ways that you are showing up in the world that are not truly authentically who you are. And a lot of it's unconscious. So it's going to start to make the unconscious conscious. So we might look at ways that we're trying to meet other people's expectations. We might look at, what is the secret daydream model of who I think I'm supposed to be? And I can never possibly live into that. So I'm always feeling like I'm not good enough. Or it might be, what are some ways that I undervalue myself in the world? So it takes you through a process of looking at these different ways that we show up inauthentically, and then moving through another process of letting go, and then recreating and creating what we call the ideal model, which is a realistic way of becoming more of who you are in the world. And it's a powerful process that allows you to consciously begin to identify how you're showing up and how you really want to show up more fully you. Because the more fully, authentically we become ourselves, the greater ways we're able to contribute and participate in a larger world. So that's this beautiful movement of becoming more authentically you.
Make sure you grab that gift. What a gift to be your authentic you. That is what the world is asking of you, is for you to be you. I know we spend so much time, like you said, in the materialistic world, like buy this and you'll be happy, buy that and you'll be happy. And really it all comes down to, and you're going to hear it over and over. You already have from our experts, and hear again from Val, saying the world needs you, the authentic you. And it's about uncovering and discovering who you truly are. So thank you, Val. Thank you so much for doing the work that you do. I'm so glad that your partner at the time showed you those videos, this great suffering of the non-human animals, that that really activated you into the work, because the work you're doing now is so needed. And I very much hope to get to feature you again in the future as well, because I think there's so much wisdom that unfortunately we just don't have time to get to today. But Val, thank you from the bottom of my heart for your contribution today.
Thank you so much, Rose. It's my pleasure to be here. And may I share how people can reach us at Psychospiritual?
Yeah, absolutely. And I have from Kathy. She says, thank you, Val.
Oh, thank you, Kathy. Beautiful. Yep. So if you want to find out more about the work we're doing at Psychospiritual Institute, we run board certified coach training and leadership programs and a whole bunch of wonderful things happening there. psychospiritualinstitute.com. So I hope to hear from you guys and just stay connected.
Perfect. And Janelle just dropped your link into the chats as well. So thank you, Val. And I'm so excited for your work and to get to connect with you again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rose.